welcome to What's Baking with Sarah Morin, the show where I make desserts, you watch, and maybe even try the recipe out for yourself. This week, we will be following a recipe from the Blue Ribbon and Pure Gold Cookbook for everyday use in Canadian homes. The book was first published in 1905, the same year as The Return of Sherlock Holmes. Alberta and Saskatchewan also became Canadian provinces that year. A pretty interesting year, if you ask me. The book contains plenty of recipes that can still be read and recreated in modern times. This includes today's recipe for honey nut date squares, a recipe that tastes exactly how it sounds. Let's get started. For this recipe, we will need a few simple ingredients. 3 eggs. I'm just assuming eggs haven't changed size in the past century. I'm sure it'll be fine. 1 cup honey. It tastes like sugar, but unlike sugar, it has vitamins and minerals in it, which makes it slightly better for you. 1 1/3 cups all-purpose flour. Without it, these wouldn't be honey nut date bars. They would be a sticky, burnt mess stuck to the interior of a loaf pan. 1 teaspoon baking powder to help the bars rise in the oven. 'Baking powder is a mixture of baking soda and cream of tartar. When a liquid is added to acidic cream of tartar, it reacts with the basic baking soda. It creates a reaction that releases carbon dioxide. The gas bubbles stay inside the dish while it bakes and makes everything light and fluffy. 1 teaspoon vanilla extract to bring out the flavor of the nuts and the dates. Vanilla and nutty flavors go together beautifully in my opinion. 1 cup chopped nuts. I'm using pecans, but you can use whatever kind of nuts you want. The recipe doesn't specify. 1 pound of chopped dates. Remember to get the ones without the pits, otherwise you're in for a surprise when you try to chop them. A pinch of salt to balance out the sweetness. In terms of baking equipment, we will need 2 mixing bowls, 1 for the wet ingredients and 1 for the dry ingredients. A spatula for scraping the sides of the bowl, making sure every drop gets into the pan. A loaf pan or other baking pan. The batter should cover the entire bottom. An electric mixer, or you could use a whisk if you don't have one. Step 1 is to beat the eggs. They don't need to be beaten for too long, just long enough that they are a consistent, uniform, light yellow color, like you're baking scrambled eggs on a Sunday morning under the light of a rainy, overcast sky. Next, we mix in the honey, once again making sure we have a uniform mixture before beginning the next step. Add in the vanilla and mix well. In the upper bowl, mix flour, baking powder, and salt. It's important to make sure that the baking powder is evenly distributed throughout the flour. Otherwise, it will not rise properly and the texture will be wrong. Once that is completely mixed, add it to the wet ingredients in the other bowl. Preheat your oven to somewhere between 300 degrees Fahrenheit and 325 degrees Fahrenheit, or 150 degrees Celsius and 160 degrees Celsius. In the original recipe, the exact temperature was not given. The author used the term slow oven to describe the temperature of the oven. I think this is probably because most people still cooked using wood stoves in the early 1900s. With a sharp kitchen knife, chop the dates and the nuts to about 1/4 their original size. Remember, in the kitchen, a sharp knife is much safer than a dull one. A sharp knife cuts with ease. You use less force when you're cutting, and you're less likely to slip and lose a finger. Grease and flour the pan. It can be a little messy, so do it over a garbage can or a sink. The flour and grease create a thin barrier between the contents of the pan and the walls of the pan, preventing the edges from sticking to the pan and burning. Mix the chopped ingredients in with the rest of the ingredients and pour it into the loaf pan. Spread the mixture out so that it is even in the pan. I should cover the entire bottom. Bake in the oven for 45 minutes. According to the recipe, it should double in height. You will know the bars are done when their edges are light brown. After bars have cooled down, cut them to your desired size. The original recipe suggests cutting them so that they're 3 inches long and 1/2 inch wide. However, you can cut them into whatever size you want. Now, as expected for these kinds of videos, is the obligatory tasting and description of the food. They taste sweet, but not overly sweet. The dates make them chewy, but the nuts add a satisfying crunch. A nice treat for a cold Canadian winter day, whether it be 1905 or 2022. That's it for this episode of What's Baking with Sarah Morin. I've been your host, Sarah Morin. There's a written version of this recipe in the description below and on my website. I hope this video has inspired you to get outside your comfort zone, and I plan to make this the best baking show that I can. I value your feedback in the comments below. Until next time, bye!